Hi, beautiful humans. Welcome to Kweshunga. My name is Penelope Sanyu and I am your host. Welcome back for those of you who have been with us this long and you have waited for us to come back because we have taken a long break. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, welcome to this beautiful space where we play, we inspire, and we live. I am super excited to be back to this space because I've missed having conversations with you and I have missed hearing from you. I've missed learning with you and growing with you. So I am glad that we are doing this all over again. Don't ask me what I've been doing because I have no answers to why we stopped shooting for a while, but we're here and that's what matters. So one of the things that happened to me is that I woke up and I was a CEO. No, that didn't happen. I didn't just wake up. There was a process and things happened and I ended up leading an institution. But sometimes we think that, you wake up, you're leading an organization and you should be a natural, right? These things should come naturally to you. They should be easy. In fact, as a CEO, you should have all your cards together. You should have everything together. And honestly, I have not had I won't use the S word, but I've not had my things together. And I have had days where I've woken up and I had no idea what I was doing. I've had days when I've woken up and I'm thinking, why am I even leading this space? Why am I leading these people? How am I leading them? What am I doing? How am I going around this? And I know that many CEOs out there, many of you who are leading entities and enterprises and different things that you're leading, CEOs of your lives, CEOs of your friends' lives, CEOs of WhatsApp groups, CEOs of organizations, you're just out there and you're wondering what in the world is going on? How do I navigate this life and what am I doing? And I thought that to have this conversation, to learn as we learn together, I should invite a very special friend of mine who is also my mentor, to have the conversations that her and I have had in a form of letters that maybe we have written to each other or conversations that we have had between ourselves. So we are spilling secrets, our secrets to you today. They are not terrible secrets, but we're doing this in a bid to invite you on a journey to learn, but also to share your journeys and to help us get into a space where we help one another grow and we support each other. And so welcome to Dear CEO. And because I am saying Dear CEO, my dear CEO, how are you?
I'm good, Penny. How are you and how are you?
Welcome, Jackie. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I know that you and I have walked a very beautiful journey. Actually, I've had so many comments from so many people say, I want what you have with Jackie. I don't know how lucky I was to have a Jackie in my life, but we are here. And I'm excited to host you today, not because you're my friend and not because you're my mentor, but because I admire your leadership. And I think that we can learn a thing or two about leading institutions. I mean, you're not perfect. I'm sure there are people who would be like, that madam, she's the one they are saying is, but you lead with grace, you lead with courage, you lead with patience, you lead with focus. There's so much,
Are you sure there's not another Jack? Maybe you're introducing somebody else because I'm like, what?
Yeah, there's so much forward-looking and inward-looking. There's so much stopping and rethinking. I've watched you deal with issues that I didn't think I would survive if I were in your shoes, but with so much grace and it's admirable. So we're going to just have a normal conversation and people will pick a few things that they need to pick on their journeys as CEOs. And I just want to start by asking you to tell us about Jackie. Did you ever dream about being a CEO? Did you want to do this life or this work, or what is it that got you here? What has it been like?
Wow. So, as Penny has said, my name is Jacqueline Asimwe. There is once I actually planned to be a CEO, and this was why. It was not to CEO, but it was at the time that I was planning to start a family. And because I had watched what friends had gone through, not being at the top and having babies. You had to explain why you were going to breastfeed. When the kids were sick, you had to you even quake going to ask your boss about taking off days to take your child to the hospital. So I said at the time that I wanted to start my family, I should be at the helm of an organization so that I could take care of my kids. So it was, I wasn't even thinking about the organization. It was for my comfort, so that and by the grace of God, indeed, when I had Jotham 21 years ago, I had applied to become CEO of UONET, the Uganda Women's Network. And I did the interviews and I got the job. And that enabled me to take Jotham to Makere, where my parents were staying. UONET at that time, the office was on Kanjocha Street. And so my mom I was literally on call anytime, like I would drop anything when he needed feeding. And so they'd call me. I rush across that time. There was not as much traffic. So the drive from Kanjocha to Makere was really quick. I'd go breastfeed and come back, do my thing of leading. And, so really that was it. That was the only time I planned, but it was not even planning to lead. It was planning to feed my child. But yeah, and I don't know that I've reflected, unfortunately, as much during my time of being a CEO of UONET. I do know I was following in the footsteps of the founding CEO, Miss Sheila Kawamara, who, props to her, had led the organization for several years and had risen it from an organization that was hosted in one of the members' offices to being its own standalone, to having programs, to having staff. I mean, she had done such a stellar job. And so in a sense, I knew that applying to be the second, I'd be judged against her record. And I was scared about that. I was so scared about that until I don't know whether I was reflecting, thinking, I don't know what it was. The thought came to me about Sheila wore her shoes, wear yours. Because we often come into a space as CEOs thinking fit into the shoes of, the one before, or too small, or too, and really, and I love Sheila as I was fitting into my shoes, she really gave me space and grace. Because I know that there are leaders, CEOs that are leading, that have taken over from another CEO, and that CEO is breathing over your neck, breathing on you, breathing around you. You've heard of it, right? Where
even beyond the CEO,
even the board and everything, and unfortunately, there are some places where a new CEO comes on board and there are camps, we liked the former leader, we don't know you, and there's a lot going on. But I really give it up to Sheila that she gave me the space to fill my shoes. So that was the first, okay, I've done this. And then the rest of it was not really planned. Not planned at all. But there you are. It is what it is, right? It's like these cards that we are holding. You're dealt a hand. And sometimes the hand represents the staff members that you inherit, right? If you're not fortunate enough to start off and start a team. But even when you start your team, yes, I might have picked Penny and Edward and Bob, but I don't know who they are beyond the CV and the interview room that I've seen them in, right? So I stack up my cards, and then with these cards, I'm supposed to play a game, and the game is called, whatever the institution is set up to do. And even as we play these cards and as I beat you, what is this? What have you done?
Played.
But you didn't tell me that the game had started.
That's sometimes you don't know that that you're the CEO. You're just you're in the role and it's happening to you. So dear,
But,
play.
But
This is how I get to win. This is how I
No,
get
and I
to
was,
win.
no. But remember, we had planned it behind the scenes that I'm supposed to win this game. As your mentor, in Africa, we respect elders. So anyhow, fast forward to the second time I CEO'd was when I was working for a consulting firm.
Yeah.
And literally, I started out as a consultant for this institution that was working in Uganda. So again, I hadn't planned on CEOing.
Yeah.
And so this firm says, we want to switch things up. We want to start a Uganda office and we want you to head it up. Like, oh,
You're like, me.
okay, but I thought, anyhow, so it is what it is. I helped to start their work in Uganda, as a formal office of that work. And it's about assembling a team. It's about, we went from choosing a space, setting up the office, choosing the people,
work,
finding a lawyer to help you find that,
yeah,
all those things. So
building
literally setting up from scratch.
Yeah.
And I guess if we think about the card game that we're holding, this too is a system, right? There are a number of Ks, a number of Qs, a number of jokers. Pick them, pick them, pick them, pick them, pick them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like I told you, I was going to win, and you can see.
Unfortunately.
You can see. So yeah. Anyhow, sorry. I have gone.
You shall not
I have gone the long way, but it's really to say it's been an interesting journey. Some pains. The other day I wrote to my colleague that what I've found about leadership is there's pain and there's promise.
And speaking of pain and promise, so it is said that he or she who wears the crown knows the weight of it, and I know that there are so many weights that you carry as CEO. Some are light, some are heavy, some are midway, some you're not even aware you're carrying until something happens and you're like, wait, I was carrying this load this whole time. And I just want to talk a bit about your journey with SIFSOS, where you lead right now. It takes courage to get up and say, we are putting ourselves out there. This is what we are going to do. I am leading this space. This is, again, I'm assembling a team. I'm building systems and I'm doing all these things. Where did you get the courage?
There was a shop on Room Street. I wish it was that. But
Point
you fast play. Point you to the shop. I have a supplier. I have a supplier. Meanwhile, card.
It's a lie. You won't finish. Sometimes great. Sometimes we have all these ideas in our minds. They are great ideas. They are life-changing ideas, but we can't execute them because the courage to begin, even when we are not sure where the people are going to come from, the other resources, the money, the space, the courage to not be accepted by society, because I can start my thing and be out there and people reject it. It's a possibility. So to close your eyes and say, I think this is the thing that my society needs and I'm putting myself out there. But even beyond that, SIFSOS is now making 6 this year. To by the way, congratulations. 6 years is wow. So to move from the first day that we started and we were afraid and we don't know what was going to happen to building within the 6 years, what emotional muscle do you have to exercise every now and again? Where do you draw the strength? Where do you constantly go to for courage? How do you maneuver that space?
Diamonds. Card. Then I'll tell you as I win.
You first pick. You first pick, then you tell me.
This life ain't fair. Anyhow, so when I started SIFSOS, There was a lot of fear, indeed, as you've said, and I think the first courage is to say, I don't know what I'm doing. And in a world where, like you said in your intro, where we have this expectation of leaders, of perfection, people half the time we are scared. So just the courage to say, I don't know what I'm doing, and then to look around and reach for help. Because it's one thing to acknowledge your shortcoming and sit in it and wallow and say, hey, woe is me.
Don't you know what to
Right? Or so there's acknowledging, I don't know, and then
Yeah.
there's reaching for help. And that is literally what I did.
Yeah.
I reached out to Moses Mukisa, who was my pastor then. Because what I wanted to do as I built CivSource was to follow the footsteps of someone that I've seen build. And I had watched him build from one location to several, from one church. So I'd watched him. I knew he must know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But also he is himself a trained coach. And he graciously agreed to coach me. I think he coached me for about 6 months. So we literally did that triangle of, he helped me think through. And that is, one of the greatest roles of a leader, of a CEO, is to think. You're the chief thinking officer. So to really think.
Pardon, not CEO, Chief Thinking Officer.
CTO. He literally helped me to think through, yes, you've birthed this organization, but what is it going to do? As precise as possible, and how do you define it? And so we went through that conversation severally, and he would give me work to do and homework to think through, and then would come back and talk through, and he'd send me back, until we did that triangle of what we do as CivSource, which is support philanthropy, build strength, shape narrative, in just like to the simplest.
As quick as it can come.
And then he also talked to me about what my role as a CEO would be. And anyway, so the short and the long, because I can't go through the whole journey, but I will put down my... but this has cut. This has cut.
I've won.
Oh, you've won. Okay. Can this episode end? Anyhow, the thing was to reach for help. And I think the other thing was, and Penny, you know this, that at the time that I started CivSource, I surrounded myself with other leaders that were starting their enterprises. And we said, and it was Queens of Chess, and we said, rather than each of us fumbling alone in our own spaces, let's come together and learn, right? And that's how Queens of Chess was born. And we were each starting very different enterprises, both in the nonprofit and for-profit space. So who is your tribe? Who is your tribe as you lead? Because you will need to lean on people. You will need to lean on people, right? So that's the other thing that helped me, that I had someone to walk a journey with me, that I had seen walk a journey of leadership, and then surrounded myself with other people that were on a journey to lead, so that we could teach ourselves. And we actually did. We would, each week that we met, give ourselves a theme to debate, to think about, to research, and people would come and present in as creative ways as possible. And we did that journey together. And I think... So there's the reaching out for help, there's creating a circle for help. And I think finally is then I reached over. And by over, I mean that I sat with my dear friend and mentor, Hope Chigudu, who herself, as the work that she does, is to help leaders from all kinds of sectors lead organizations with a soul. And so I often sat with her to talk about the struggles I was going through that I felt I couldn't share with my team. And she was really, really my strength. So really, the courage when you can't find it within. And of course, sometimes you need to. You can't always reach outward. But I think when you can't find it within, find it around you. That's what I would say about courage.
So one of and I like that you talk about surrounding yourself with the right people and surrounding yourself with, the support system that gets you going. And on that note, this is an appreciation note both to Miss Hope Chigudu and Mr. Moses Mukisa of Worship Harvest Ministries, because he did not just help you, he has helped so many other leaders. I was as privileged to also be coached by him at around the same time. And I know that he has done a good job depositing certain values in people's lives. It's not enough to be mentored. It's not enough to be coached, because one of the things that I have found is that as a leader, I must be asking the right questions. So I am going to tap into your ability to read, because one of the things that you do is extensively read, but also ask how you build critical thinking. Because, like you said, the main role of a CTO is to think. It's to think for the institution, it's to think for the people, about them, for them, with them. It's to build systems. You can't build systems if you're not asking the right questions. And I'm not even going to ask you to give examples of the right questions, but if it has worked for 6 years, clearly you're asking some of the right questions.
I hope so. I hope so.
You're asking
or
some
many of the wrong ones, who knows?
Even the wrong ones, by the way, because we are so afraid to ask questions because we are afraid of being judged. And you said something at the beginning of your talk that you need to have the ability to say, I don't know. Now, for some of us where we come from, and for many of us who are watching, I'm sure you agree that admitting to not knowing is a very big sign of weakness. I mean, how do I stand before my team and I'm leading them and I'm telling them I also don't know? So who knows?
Yeah.
So building that vulnerability muscle, where do you draw the line? Because there's asking the right questions, then there's being vulnerable enough to admit that I don't know, and then there's outrightly being in a space where you're just shaming the institution and yourself with your lack of knowledge. And that's why I wanted to tie that with your ability to read, because I think that it starts there, right?
One of the things I used to ask, I no longer do, and maybe I should start again. One of the things I used to ask anyone purporting to want to join our team was to ask them, what book are you reading? And I'd say, don't tell me the Bible, the Quran, those are mandatory. And don't tell me there's no. And
I'm reading Who Moved My Cheese for the 1 millionth time.
There's another one by Steve Covey that everyone would quote. 7 Habits of Highly Effective. Not those ones. Something else. Because, unfortunately, don't they say that people perish for a lack of knowledge? And so if you're the chief thinking officer, you must be reading.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You must be reading. And for people who say, I can't, I won't, I
don't know.
Join a book club, create a book club of CEOs and read together. And that is one of the gifts that Moses gifted us.
Yeah.
Because not only was he coaching me during the time I attended a mastermind that he was doing, I think it was the 15 Laws.
15 Laws of Growth. 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. By John Maxwell.
So I thought, I've seen you, again, do this with a group of people. Why don't we do this in my team? And so we started what we called the masterminds, which was my attempt, not just to read alone as the CEO, but to say we will have a culture of reading. Even if it's the only book you read for a whole year, we will read it together, talk about it together, and grow in knowledge and wisdom together. But for that I did for the group, but I think, like you said, for the CEO, there's you must. 1, 2, that now we also have so many aids. If you can't read a book, there's so many there's so many ways to draw knowledge and wisdom from people. And then I remember that a practice that you and I started, and I think it was also Hope that encouraged us to say, look, you're both CEOs, one maybe has walked a journey a bit longer than the other, why don't you turn your questions into letters?
Yes.
And that's how
That's how
Dear
the-
CEO
yes.
started, right? Because you would then share with me issues or questions that you were grappling with, and I would attempt to answer them as an older, in that sense, an older CEO. And I think then I started to broaden it out in terms of what issues was I facing, what
Yeah.
questions was I dealing with. And I'd turn those into a blog, as a way to answer myself, as a way to also reach out, to other CEOs to say, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I'm finding right now. How about you? So really, it is there is no shortcut. Yeah.
You gotta read.
You gotta read.
You have to put
I
in the
know.
work.
Yes.
You must put
And
in
reading
the work.
is the work. And Penny.
Yeah.
And I think especially for non-profit leaders and maybe business leaders also struggle the same way, that we can get so tied into the doing. We know we are busy. We know you guys are ultra busy.
Yeah.
So you literally have to schedule reading. I
Yes.
kid you not.
Yes.
It will not happen if it's not scheduled. What doesn't get scheduled
Does
doesn't
not
get
get
done.
done.
So I literally had to learn. And I say this also to say that we don't give ourselves as leaders enough time to think, to read, to learn. So please, leaders, I learned it from John Maxwell. I think he takes off every Friday and then he does a quarterly retreat, and we used to do those, right? To step away. I know, we were such good students.
We have gotten into now the business of
I know.
CEOing, and
No.
we have
Seriously.
forgotten the-
So he used to set aside a Friday for learning. So I started to think, okay, I will also set aside a
How
day
much
for
time
learning.
do I put aside
So
for
if
my
I look in
growth
your
and
calendar, dear CEO, will I find thinking time? And thinking time includes reading time, that space and time and moment where you're imbibing knowledge on your own. There's, yes, group learning, but all students know at the end of the day, you also have to do your own individual reading.
Yeah. And one of the things I struggle with, Jackie, even on my journey, is the thin line between being feared and being loved as a CEO. I'm going to ask you to talk a bit about that. Because sometimes foolishness has got to be called out. And you must call it out. But there's a very, very thin line between calling out foolishness and losing your system, which is the people. And I think that most of us struggle with decision making and asking the right questions and being strategic thinkers, because you're torn between being loved and being feared, and you're paralyzed in the middle there as a CEO, and therefore slowly you're dying and you're killing the institution. What has been your experience been?
Why are you asking those painful questions?
I
First
have to.
play. So, and I...
First speak to even before you start.
Please. Be humble.
Yeah, we are sorry.
Be humble and pick more. So anyhow, now when you ask that question, the reason I even lowered my head is, so I am unfortunately a consummate people pleaser. And this goes now into... Because as a leader, of course, you bring who you are.
Yes.
You bring
The
your
character,
characteristics,
the
your
chemistry.
traits, and it's a thing I have struggled with because of many things. I know you did, in previous episodes, we talked about firstborning.
Yes.
And how you're really, as an African firstborn child, your role is to please. Literally, your role is to please.
You've got to be the best.
Do what mama says, do what daddy says. When the visitors, let's show up as a put
very
together.
best.
So you're socialized into pleasing.
Yeah.
And I think I have brought that into the way I lead. And it's not to say pleasing is wrong. Indeed, we should be pleasant, we should be kind, we should, don't do bad manners. But there's a pleasing that where you become a doormat, where everybody steps all over you, where you are boundaryless, where you bleed all over your people in terms of your emotions and everything. And so that is an area I have really, really, really struggled with.
Yeah.
Because like you said, when you're a people-pleasing leader, you are slow at making decisions, especially the right hard decisions. Because the pleasing ones of, no, let's add those, you will be very quick at. But when you have to call out stuff, oh my goodness, you go to Prayer Mountain, you go to, I don't know.
You have to go around the mountain 70 times.
Was this me? Was this you?
Was me.
So I do recognize it. And I think two things. One, so really know yourself as a leader. And so I've taken various personality tests. I have, after Moses, worked with 3 other coaches, and I keep bringing this back in a sense to say this is still an area of struggle. And, we do strategies about how to overcome it. The other thing that I was going to talk about is, the retreats that we do as Civ Source Africa for leaders.
Yeah.
And we talk about energy, and also as a CEO, you're the chief energy officer, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're a people pleaser, it means there's something in your rooting, something in your grounding, right? And so I always, when I'm tending towards that, I have to catch myself and say, what is it? What are you insecure about that you're now tending towards pleasing? And it's not an easy journey, but it's knowing that about you and coaching yourself out of it. It's also, it does take wisdom to know when to be, where was the statement that I read? That if you want to be liked, go sell ice cream.
Yeah.
I wish I could. No, but that's really to say, and sometimes when I make decisions and people are grumbling and they're not happy, I have to speak to myself and say, Jackie, you're not here to be liked. It's not, you're not here to be a tyrant or a dictator. No, you're not here to be liked.
Friends.
I'm trying to lead us towards a direction, and sometimes it will not be pretty.
Be pleasant. Yeah. That's a very difficult place. I really, really struggle with that, because I know that, like you said, we are energy, and the energy you carry into the institution is you love people, you want them to be good, you want them to thrive, you want only good things for them, by the way, most times. And sometimes, it just doesn't settle. So it's But we shall talk about people a bit more. And so now, even as we get to the close of this conversation, I want to ask you to talk a little bit about the foundationals. So you've talked about you've talked about reading, thinking, a support system and all. And so just look at our people out there. Maybe there's a new CEO who's thinking, okay, I've been handed this thing. I probably don't know what I'm doing. I am winging it. And they're going to figure me out very soon. Somehow, someone will see through me and be like, you really can't do this. And we've all had those struggles. So what are the foundational things you would like to tell that dear chief thinking officer out there who's grappling with the foundations of starting an organization? Maybe they are 2, 1 year, 3 years into it. That you think this is key, this worked for me, I think you can take away from this. And yes, that's not to say everything we've been saying is not to take away, but there are the key things that you think, this was my anchor, this was my grounding, and you can pick a forest from it and build.
Okay. So foundations is knowing that you don't build alone. One of the things I did as I started Civ Source was then to look around me and say, which CEOs do I admire? And I did a round of talking to CEOs and asking them questions, asking them to tell me the mistakes they regretted most, asking them to tell me how did they handle success, how did they build what they built. And I literally took notes because I was teaching myself. So surround yourself, teach yourself, learn, right? We've said, we've agreed, it's a space where many times you will not know. So it's up to you to fill that knowledge gap. Don't stay with it and say, after all, no one
will figure it out for you.
No, so find a way to figure it out. Teach yourself. So really it is, have a teachable spirit. I think we used to think, growing up, when we started work, the leading was the apex. And I guess we thought of it as the arrival lounge, right? You start. Please, and my role is to order people.
Let's just chill.
I know, and it's not that, no one ever told us, right?
Nobody chills at the top.
No. And I guess that's the thing, that it is work. It is work.
It is service.
There's one podcast that I've been listening to that I really find amazing and goes back to your foundations. He said, the level of your leadership is determined by the level of your habits.
Yes.
And so as a CEO also, what habits are you creating? What are those that you need to let go of? So it's a serious... It's self-knowledge. Please know yourself. Know yourself as a leader.
Know yourself to grow yourself.
Know yourself as a leader. Teach yourself. Please. There's so many books, there are podcasts, there are people to talk to.
Yes.
Teach yourself. You're not alone. And reach out for help. Like, don't suffer alone. Don't die alone. It's not worth it in that sense. Don't kill yourself in the struggle. Reach out for help and watch your habits. So, in fact, he said, oftentimes as leaders, we are quick to, this is what I want to do. But he says you need to first determine, what kind of leader do I want to be? And then behave yourself towards that, i.e. create the habits for the kind of leader that you want to be. So if I want to be the kind of leader that supports my team and enables, empowers them, that's what I want to be, a leader like that, then what do I need to do to be? So first determine your who before your do. What kind of leader do you want to be? And write it down. And find a person that will hold you accountable. Walk with someone. Don't walk this journey alone.
First, give me hearts, because now I'm in my feelings. And, and I feel like there's so much to say about this conversation and this topic, and I just want to close here, because then I don't want to preempt what we're going to talk about next week. So yes, next week I will be hosting Jackie again as we continue this conversation around CEOing. And the thing I want us to dig deeper into next week is shedding the layers of. We're going to get a bit deeper into the CEO thing. Right now we are on the surface and it feels light and funny and, and deep too. But I want us to get into the real meat of this CEO conversation, so that the people out there, even us as we have grown on our journey, we are looking back and saying, oh, if I had to do this again, maybe this is what I would do different. So I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. But while I beat you, please give me more hearts. And yes. So while she picks up all her joker cards, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I need you to know, if you're a CEO out there, if you're a CTO out there, if you're the Chief Energy Officer out there, that you're not alone, and that your struggles are valid, and that we are here to have a conversation where we can support each other to lead well and to grow institutions that are admirable and that are at the pinnacle of leadership. So I want to wish you well, and I want to invite you to share your experiences in the comments, share your experiences and questions for Jackie because she's coming back next week. And let's just get into this depth of CEOing. It's been Penny and Jackie, and I wish you a Kweshunga-filled week. Until next time, bye-bye.